Hi, my name is Farzaneh Haghighi and I'm based at the University of Auckland in New Zealand. My chapter that was published in the first volume of the handbook is about the street protests and its representations. What I argue in this chapter is to say that if we want to analyze the street protests, we first have to consider that social movements have to be investigated and considered alongside the oppression, surveillance, and bloodshed that happens and occurs at the same time. In fact, we cannot separate the street protests from the representation of the bloodshed on the street. So the analysis of the two have to go hand in hand. The street operates at two levels simultaneously, as public space in which democracy can be practiced and as a corridor that transforms individuals into crowds and targets to be shot and dead. In fact, this is the trap of visibility par excellence. As an alternative, this chapter suggests that we need to make a shift from the street violence crowd towards street mediation crowd, because urban street protest essentially concerns visibility and representation, which are inherent to architecture both as a discipline and as a practice. So in fact, in doing so, and what I do in this chapter, I show that architecture is no longer a container, but rather it's a critical lens. It becomes a critical lens. The ideas and theories that I explore in this chapter are basically starting from the idea of pouring into the street, which is constructed as an inevitable and ultimate action towards social change. In fact, street has become the only space that is left for people to express discontent. Urban movements, Manuel Castell argues that are powerless in the context of technologically sophisticated global economy, in media empires and computerized bureaucratic governments. However, these movements we see that continue to emerge, not because people don't know that they need an international working class movement, but because people are left with no other choice. For David Harvey, the Marxist geographer, social inequality that are inherent to capitalism can be only resolved through a revolutionary act, and this revolution can only occur and arise from urban streets. So the importance of the urban streets is raised by David Harvey. Another link that I explore is the relationship between the urban and the crowd, which is well formulated by philosopher Michel Foucault through his concept of population. He traces the notion of population to the transformation of European cities, of European towns of 18th century, where they started to open up because the walls around the city were demolished, and now the city has been opened up to the outside. As such, now there is a new form of power required. He calls it apparatus of security in order to manage probabilities. Technologies of power are mutating, and they are now becoming centrifugal rather than centripetal. This new power then produces an absolutely new thing, a new political subject called population, Foucault says. It is an object of management and government which is different from people or individual. In fact, the crowd or people are counter to the idea of population because it problematizes the governable subject. It falls outside of the governable realm, and as such becomes disposable. So I talk about the formation of the crowd where it falls outside of the realm of governable realm, and as such it becomes a target that its life is disposable. So I use these ideas to investigate a particular protest in Iran in 2019 through three examples. So following this, although the protest happened in 2019, but its roots can go back to 2012, because from 2012 to 2016, a systematic suppression of dissidents started to occur, labor movement and labor unrest, that consequently they failed to form a coalition. In November 2019, Iranians took to the street across more than 100 cities across the country in response to the sudden fuel price, which was around 200%. And the demonstrations were met with extreme lethal force, which roughly minimum of 1,500 people were killed, and it became known as a Bloody November. And in an unprecedented event, the country internet was shut down for 1 week. So with the absence of independent media, only after a few weeks, the representation of this protest and violence appeared online as civilians started to upload their photographs and videos online. Hence, we face with a mediated reporting. So it becomes essential to examine the street mediation crowd combination in this case. This chapter shows that the way media constructs spectacles from ordinary people's struggle through this representation, spectacles that can become consumed, that they can be consumed. And in this analysis, I look at 3 videos that you can see some images of them where people were targeted, killed, shot, and I examine how the way media construct this. And in doing that, I show that how architecture would become no longer a container, but architecture becomes a point of reference, becomes a material witness to show that an event has happened in a particular time and space. It gives form to a spatial violence. Architectural dimensions become a tool for violence. Architecture becomes an essential part of production machine that produces the simulated for the consumer society. And architecture operates at the level of disappearance of the distinction between copy and real, when the real is no longer possible. Thank you.